Good morning, it's Patriot Smoothie. It is day 16 of the criminal trial for Tamara Lich and Chris Barber. Today we're going to hear from 3 civilian witnesses. Yesterday we completed 2 witnesses. The first witness we'll hear from today, Stéphane Belfoy. We started with yesterday. We also got through Vivian Lear and Sarah Gallman. So Vivian Lear worked at a church and Sarah Gallman was a resident of the downtown area. Interestingly, both of those 2 first completed witnesses testified that they were in some way participating in the current class action lawsuit against the convoy leaders here. So that's an interesting thing, and to see how that will develop as a conflict of interest and how that will come up later, or how that will affect the judge's interpretation of their evidence, given that they may have other motives for testifying. Clearly, if they're participating in this civil lawsuit, I don't know the ramifications of that, but it is an interesting and important thing to make note of. Today, again, we're going to hear from the completion of Stéphane Belfoy. Yesterday, we had a lot of issues with the interpreter services. He is testifying using an interpreter, and the interpreter was making several different mistakes, frustrating both the judge and the defense. The judge at one point remarking that if the translation errors continued, that she would have to find a new interpreter. This morning it's expected that we will have 2 certified French interpreters. I'm not sure if the same one from yesterday will be back, but it is what it is. And we heard interesting testimony from the first 2 witnesses. We heard things like the roads were blocked, the smell of fumes invaded their space. The second witness, who worked at a church downtown, Vivian Lear, described it as infiltrating her place of work, that it was fouled by garbage, that there was alcohol cans and food waste all about the property, that their signs were taken over, and that articles of clothing, specifically a hat and a scarf, were placed on their statue of Jesus. She also testified that the services they were offering on Sunday suffered from diminished attendance during the Freedom Convoy, and she said she knew that because she testified she wasn't physically present for those services, but she testified she knew that because she would check the attendance on their live stream service, so she could see that there was less people, according to her testimony, and also that they handed out pamphlets. But she did admit on cross that the pamphlets she handed out, people might not have taken them because she said she counted them on the Monday following service when she came into work, and therefore would know that the attendance numbers were lower because there was less pamphlets that were given out. There was more coming back to her office. And so, but the defense got her to admit that people could have come and not even taken those pamphlets, which is a possibility. We just don't know. She said yes, but it would have been silly. Her testimony was quite interesting. We also heard, again, describing the protest as an occupation. She felt her space had been invaded and taken from her, and that her activities were limited. She testified that the church property was blockaded. She testified to 3 occasions where she witnessed someone urinating. She also spoke of defecation, but she didn't actually directly witness that. She found feces, I guess, on the property, unknown who that could have been from. She said that she had words with that there was a truck playing Led Zeppelin music across from her church on the street next to her church, and rather loudly. And on one occasion she confronted this individual about his music, and they exchanged swearing. There was he swore at her, not exchanged, but he swore at her. She never said that she swore. But then at that point she said the police intervened on her behalf, that she never called the police for any service except on 2 occasions to arrange for an escort service for the church's minister. But she also testified on cross-examination that she walked from an LRT station downtown at Lyon to the church without anybody escorting her. And also there was a video played by the defense that showed the street that she was talking about in front of her church empty. There was 2 or 3 trucks and 2 wide open lanes, and we didn't see this pile of garbage or any kind of thing. I believe that video was from February 10th. I'm sorry, the dates just all get crossed in my mind, but an interesting picture. We also saw a drone photo from the police drone from another date of the same area showing very limited congestion. The, again, same couple of trucks, 2 or 3. And interesting, in that video I was talking about, it's a police video, a police body cam I assume, but police video, and they went up to these trucks that were parked near the church, and you could hear some music playing, but the music was so low as to be less loud than the background noise. So it was extraordinarily low music sounds. She testified that it would fluctuate and would change depending on the day. The first witness admitting, that would be Sarah Gallman, admitting that she could walk down the streets. The sidewalks were open, she just did not feel comfortable. So it seems that's another recurring theme here, that we have feelings of discomfort, but not physical obstructions to things. They're feeling uncomfortable. There was testimony by Sarah Gorman that she called the cab company on an occasion to go to a medical appointment, and that the cab company refused to come and pick her up. But again, there was a picture shown during cross-examination by Miss Magus showing that the area was clear that she was talking about, and that theoretically she felt like she could have actually called a taxi, but they said that they wouldn't come. We saw there was no physical obstruction to taxi service in her area. So, and the Crown objecting, actually, a rare objection from the Crown, saying that she's not able to speak on behalf of the cab companies, whether she felt they could come and get her or not. So that's interesting that the Crown is presenting that perspective, that she's not able to speak on behalf of someone else, just like Chris and Tamara in this trial are having to speak for everybody else. Haven't seen any direct evidence against them up until this point for the crimes they're accused of. Again, none of these witnesses that we're expected to hear from today or yesterday had any interaction at any point with Tamara or Chris. We already understand that to be established. So that's an interesting thing that we're watching develop here in real time during this proceeding today against Stefan Belfoy. Starting yesterday, we're still on the Crown's examination in chief. And he testified that at one point, I guess, I don't understand how this came to be, but the congestion was so bad that him and his family were coming back from a hockey practice, and his son was in his full hockey gear wearing his hockey skates, and they were walking in the Bronson area, and people were laughing at them or something like that. Also interesting, we heard testimony from other witnesses that intersections like Bank and Somerset had people wringing their fists, whatever that means. No documentation or allegations of any kind of assault at this point. A couple of verbal disagreements we heard. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that today. And also interesting about the third witness that's on the stand right now, Mr. Belfoy, Stefan Belfoy. He testified that he only lived in his apartment for 7 days before he moved in, which could suggest that maybe he doesn't have an accurate knowledge of the amount of traffic or situation normal at that area, because he's only lived there for 7 days previous. That's an interesting point that came out as well. From Ottawa, I'll see you at lunchtime on Patriot Smoothie.